I take the metro. I take the train here in town. Whenever the weather is just horrible, I'm taking the train. When the weather is horrible, I'll take Uber or I'll take a cab or whatever. But more often than not, this morning, because the train station on where I live is maybe a half mile, 3/4 of a mile away. It's about a 6 or 8, maybe 10 block walk. And then the one that drops out here by our radio studio is just a block and a half away. And I remember years ago using mass transit, and people would just be in the car. A few people would be reading a book or something, but most people would be kind of reading the signs around, trying to not establish eye contact with people or be rude, but just, being there. And I remember those of you who read The Prophet's Way, from 1978 up until, maybe 11, 12 years ago, I used to go to Germany every 4 or 5 months, a couple times a year at least, and take this 5-hour train ride across the country and 5 hours back. And I got really good at just like being present, just sitting there. Now, this is actually a form of meditation. It's called mindfulness, where you just sit and notice what's going on without thinking about it, without judging it. The minute that you begin to think, oh, that's not good, well, touch that and let it go, right? So notice that thought and let it go. And then just come back to, oh, I'm sitting here, I'm breathing. My butt's on the seat. I can hear the train. I can smell the air. Just noticing, just being present. And I first noticed this like a week ago, and I wrote a note to myself to talk about this on the air. There's actually 2 ways. It was March 3rd. I sent the email to myself. I have it in front of me, but I've been sitting on this for a while. But I wanted to talk about it because I think this is really important. Around that time, this was a couple of weeks ago, for the last couple of years, well, for the 5 years we've lived here in Washington, D.C., almost virtually every day I take the train. I take Metro. I used to take a different one for but whatever. So, and I would always load the New York Times onto my iPhone, because that app works great offline. In other words, they download all the stories, and then whether you've got a Wi-Fi connection or not, because you lose your Wi-Fi connection in the Metro as you go between stations. So I could read my phone. And I suddenly realized a couple of weeks ago that there was like no time when I was not constantly amusing myself, mostly with my phone. Whether I was, playing blackjack on it, or whether I was reading the New York Times, or whether I was, checking Hartmann Report, or whether I was looking at other news reports, or, whatever it may be. Throughout the day, checking Twitter. It's constant. And it suddenly occurred to me that the moments of time, even like 5 or 10 minutes at a time in a day, that historically I used to just say, I'm just going to sit here and be present. Which is something, this back in the day, back in the late 60s, early 70s, I used to go to these meditation retreats at Karmacholing up in Vermont, where you would literally just sit from 6 o'clock in the morning till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Sit on a cushion. Once an hour, they'd ding a gong, and you'd get up and walk around the room and then sit back down again so your legs don't fall asleep and fall off. And just be present. And it was just a remarkable thing. And I shared with you a couple of weeks ago this incredible research where they put people through people with, as I recall, it was people with PTSD. They put them through a 3-day meditation course, and then they put an equal number of people through a 3-day relaxation course at the same place. But one group was actually sitting and meditating, in other words, paying attention to simply being present. And the other group was, bending and stretching and relaxing and laying in the sauna and all kinds of things, but they were never told to just be present. In other words, keep your attention here now. As Ram Dass said in the title of his book, Be Here Now. And what they found was that the people who meditated just for 3 days, now it was an intensive 3 days, 10, 12 hours a day, But those people who meditated, their brains actually changed, and 6 months later, they were able to still see those changes on an MRI. That's pretty amazing. And when you look at how we used to think back in the day when we used to have time to do that, for example, this is from one of the letters of Thomas Jefferson to James Monroe. Dear sir, I've been gratified with the receipt of your 2 favors of the 6th and 11th instant. There was just 2 letters in the 6th and 11th. It gives me pleasure that your country has been wise enough to enlist your talents into your service. I am much obliged by the kind wishes you expressed of seeing me also in Richmond, and I'm always mortified when anything is expected from me which I cannot fulfill, and more especially if it relates to my public service. Before I venture to declare to my countrymen my determination to retire from public employment, I examined well my heart to know whether it were thoroughly cured of every particle of political ambition, whether no lurking particle remained which might leave me uneasy when reduced within the limits of mere private life. Now, we don't write like that anymore. Why? Because we've got national ADD. Why do we have national ADD? Because we're constantly checking our phones. We're constantly listening. We're constantly, the TV is on all the time. It's like, I just want to suggest that all of us, for our mental health, for our well-being, and for our physical health, actually, this will reduce your blood pressure. This will, balance your immune system. I mean, the benefits of what they call meditation, I'm simply calling it being present. This morning I got on the train, and my first impulse was to pull my phone out of my pocket and start reading the New York Times. And I thought, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to be present on the train. I've been doing this more and more. And when I was walking, we used to be, when I'd walk down to the train, I'd call Louise and we'd talk. And I thought, no, I'm just going to walk and just be present and just notice my steps. And what a difference it makes in the quality of your day. So consider just being present. Even when things are happening around you, even if the TV is on, the radio is on, whatever it may be, you can still just notice that you're present. Anyhow, end of sermon. To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.